Hello, BookTube. Well, as some of you may have heard in my incessant complaining in the last few videos, I am currently in the Valley of the Shadow of Death under a crushing deadline. The deadline is tomorrow. The deadline is tomorrow. And I am within sight of actually doing this thing that is completely impossible. There is no way that I should be able to do it. I'm within sight of actually doing it. But like I mentioned yesterday, errands don't care about deadlines. I had to go out this morning. I had to run a couple of errands. And one of those errands very early this morning put me right within striking distance of the Brattle Bookshop, a great used bookstore in the heart of downtown Boston, where I haven't been in 3 weeks. That's a long time for me to go without going to the Brattle, a long time. I went the week before I moved, vacationed up in Vermont with the Bean. Then we got trapped up in Vermont. We had plenty of books all around us, plenty of book shopping up there, but not the Brattle, not my own bookshop. I'm lucky enough to have my own bookshop, a place where I've been going so long that it feels like home. So when I was that close, deadline or no deadline, I went to the Brattle Bookshop, which has 3 stories, jam-packed with books, all at reasonable prices. Big butcher block pricing desk right as you walk in the door that has all the new arrivals getting ready to go wherever. And also a gigantic lot right next to the store with thousands more books for sale at $1, $3, and $5. So the key, I knew when I was walking to the Brattle that the key would be not so much to go, but don't linger. That if I linger, I'll be egregiously eating into time that I cannot spare. I cannot spare that time. So I managed to control myself, and I got a pile of books. I actually got 2 piles of books. One pile of books is for one of you. A whole pile for one person. Because I was pulling them off the carts outside, they were all $1, and I was thinking, well, I can just mail them here from the shop. I can have the shop mail them, so I don't have to think about it. And sure enough, they did. But that still left a pile for me. So I thought we'd go through them and see what we have. The first one is a double. There are a few doubles in here. I grabbed them. If they're $1 a piece, I'll grab them. This is Julian May. This is the first book in the Pliocene Exile series called The Many-Colored Land, which is science fiction just wonderfully done, in my opinion, just wonderfully done. There's a great Michael Whelan cover that stretches out over the whole front thing there. The setting at the beginning is in mankind's future, when mankind has learned not only how to control its latent psychic abilities, telekinesis, far-seeing, telepathy, astral projection, rapid healing, levitation, that sort of thing. But also because they learned how to control those abilities, mankind has also joined an intergalactic group, an intergalactic civilization that uses whether or not you have achieved mental operancy as one of the yardsticks for whether or not you can join in the first place. So this book starts in the settled reality of that. Humanity is a respected member of that group, just going about its business in the interstellar ways. And a handful of misfits in that society. Misfits for one reason or another, whether there's a character who's been wounded and can't use her metaphysical abilities anymore. There's a character who's antisocial. There's a character who is banned by law. There are a couple of other people that are just seeking an escape from the nuisances of their intergalactic world. And fortunately, in their world, the ultimate escape from such nuisances has been found. In one valley in France has been found a time portal that goes back to 5 million years ago, to the Pliocene, and doesn't come back. It's a one-way door. You go in and you're stuck in the Pliocene. Nothing comes back. And researchers know what the Pliocene world was like. It was relatively normal. The sun, the oxygen content in the world, the ocean levels, most of the wildlife was relatively the same as you would know in relatively contemporary Earth. So these self-induced exiles don't feel like they're giving up all that much. They will be going into the wild wilderness and discovering themselves there. So believe it or not, the scientist who discovered that portal has a steady list of people who want to go through it, even though they know they're never coming back. And our group of misfits does go through that portal. And because no word ever comes back to the present, our group of misfits discovered something that no one has ever managed to tell the present-day Earth, which is that 5 million years ago, in that same valley in France, an alien species has landed on Earth and is steadily capturing and enslaving every human who comes through that portal. uh, and the aliens have their own society, a couple of different societies, and they have their own backstories. And the story of the Pliocene exile follows our characters as they engage with this society and eventually rock it to its foundations. It doesn't always happen. None of that happens in the first book. The first book is largely foreground, but tremendously fun. Tremendously fun. And The Many-Colored Land, as far as I know, has never been reprinted after these paperbacks. There was The Many-Colored Land, The Golden Torque, The Non-Born King, The Adversary. Those 4 books, I don't think, have ever been collected in a volume outside of maybe Science Fiction Book Club. They've never been reprinted. No idea why. They're terrific stuff. So when I see these old mass markets, I grab them. So I grabbed this for $1. Then this next one, a perfect example of the Brattle will provide. I was no later than yesterday. I was talking about this, but I don't have this. And then I went to the Brattle, and there it was, The Persian Boy by Mary Renault. This is her great Alexander the Great novel, with Alexander seen from the viewpoint of a minor character in the Alexander mythos, a castrated slave boy who's a bedroom sex toy, and becomes that for Alexander, but views Alexander's life and his people and his conquests with that kind of intimacy. This is the old mass market paperback, perfect condition. I read this mass market paperback first of all. I didn't read this book first in hardcover. I read this first of all and loved the book, absolutely loved it. I will definitely take the mass market until a hardcover turns up. Then we have some murder mysteries. Because March Mystery Madness is coming up fast. I found a few mysteries that I've never heard of that I thought I'd give it a try. The first one is by S.T. Heyman, and it's called Death and the Pregnant Virgin. I think this was her first book, and it's set in her hometown environs of Norwich, England. And it's about an inspector who has to solve a mysterious crime in a small English town. I'll read a million of those. I'll read those all day long. It was dirt cheap, so I grabbed it. The next one is much more recent, I think. This is Oxford Exit by Veronica Stallwood. Do any of you know this author? This is about a literarily inclined detective. What's her name? Kate Ivory. She's a novelist. And she goes to the Bodleian Library in this book, which I think the author worked at the Bodleian Library, if I'm not mistaken. And murderous hijinks ensue. So this will probably be, a college town mystery. I don't know anything about it at all. I don't think I've ever read this author, but this was dirt cheap, so I grabbed it. And then the other mystery here is a vintage hardcover, an old vintage hardcover of Georgette Heyer. This is Duplicate Death. I just had a very, very good experience with a vintage hardcover mystery, Death of a Peer by Nyayo Marsh. And I already know that I love this author's work. I think I've read this book. But I read, just last year, I read Detection Unlimited by this author, who's known for her Regency romance novels, but her detection stuff is wonderful. I read Detection Unlimited and loved it. Just loved it. So when I saw this, I grabbed it. My only worry, you can see that with those playing cards on the cover, my only worry, it's a bridge novel. A central place in the novel is given over to the card game Bridge, which I know more than any other card game, even poker, it makes absolute possessed fanatics out of the people who play it. They can think of nothing else. And I wonder if Georgette Heyer is one of those. And I worry about it because I don't know anything about bridge, and I don't want to know anything about bridge. I don't want to have to know the game of bridge in order to understand or appreciate this book. We'll see. We'll see. I'm not going to see right away because I'm not going to read any of these. Tempting as they are, I'm not going to read any of these things anytime soon. I have a deadline to finish first as soon as I'm done making these videos. This next one is an Oxford World Classic of Dr. Thorne by Anthony Trollope. This is the third Barsetshire novel. Though there doesn't have much to do with Barsetshire, it has to do mainly with the title character and his ward, who is, unbeknownst to her, coming into extreme wealth. It's an affecting story. It's a little bit dopey at times, and the main character, Mary Thorne, is just insufferable. As Trollope was weird. Half of his female characters are better drawn than any female characters in 19th century fiction, and the other half are simpletons. that you can't wait to get rid of. But I grabbed this in mass market paperback, even though this is available on Project Gutenberg, because Oxford World Classic did a huge number of Trollope novels in these uniform yellow spine mass market paperbacks for, I think, the centenary of his death or centenary of his birth, something like that. And I once had all of them. They are, for the introductions and the notes that you get, by far the best editions of Trollope. And for some reason, I got rid of them all. I don't know why. So now I'm slowly, shamefacedly reconnecting them. This next one is also a duplicate. This is what Jason Harrigan would call a reading copy. This is The Acts of King Arthur and His Noble Knights by John Steinbeck. This has the Darrell K. Sweet fantasy insert cover there. And it's in rough shape, but I'm going to beat the hell out of it anyway. This is just Steinbeck writing his Arthurian book. Just put one drink in virtually any male writer in the last 200 years, and you will find that they had an aspiration, or still do, to write an Arthurian book of some kind or another. They all think that it's lacking its great epic. They all think that this whole cycle of stories is lacking its great epic, and if only they could buckle down, they could maybe do it. Thomas Berger thought the same thing, John Steinbeck, a whole bunch of other people. And I always want to tell them, such people like that. I've only ever had one of those authors drunk, propounding on, I'm going to write an Arthur book someday. I always want to tell them when they say that, I want to say two things. One, this does have an epic, right? A contemporary of Shakespeare. Thomas Malory wrote the epic. It's called Les Marques d'Arthur. You're not going to do any better than that. It does have an epic. Just because you haven't read it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And even if you're talking about a modern epic, T.H. White wrote The Once and Future King. Are you honestly thinking you can do a better job than that book, which is almost ethereal in its beauty? You cannot. You simply cannot do a better job. This doesn't even come close. But it tries other things that I like. This is King Arthur written by John Steinbeck. That is a selling point right there. Then this next one, I couldn't resist. It was like $1. I couldn't resist grabbing it. This is a Book of the Month Club edition of the autobiography of Benvenuto Cellini, with illustrations by Salvador Dali that go all throughout here. This is the Addington Simons translation, I think. Yeah, this is the Addington Simons translation with illustrations by Salvador Dali throughout. He does color illustrations. I think he was a big fan of the book, as anyone who's read it has been. And he also did black and white spot illustrations. And this is, I've mentioned this book countless times on this channel. It's hundreds of years old, but you will never know that. When you read it, you will be caught up immediately in the story of this guy. He was a famous artist. That is Salvador Dali-esque versions of some of his famous artwork on the cover there, only colored flesh-wise. He was brilliant. He was a brilliant artist, but this thing is going to outlast any knowledge of his artwork. This book there are hardly any autobiographies like this in the world. There's not a word in it that can be trusted. But there's not a word in it that's dull. It's fascinating from beginning to end. It's totally self-serving. None of the stories in here happen the way they are portrayed, but it's so much fun. Just so much fun. I've never seen this edition before. A Book of the Month Club. Who knew? So I grabbed it. I can stand to have one more copy. Then we have a hardcover murder mystery. Again, March Mystery Madness is right around the corner. This is one I've talked about before. This is by Stephen Saylor, and it's an ancient Roman historical murder mystery called, can you make it out there? A Murder on the Appian Way. With a different cover design than this author had previously had. I think because this is the book where he changed publishers. And you can always tell when in the author's career it is, because in his author photo he gets progressively older. There he is almost a boy. And this is the story of it's all based on real stuff. His Rome Sub Rosa series are all based on real things. I mean, they're invented characters. Gordianus the Finder is the protagonist of here, and he of course is invented. But the superstructure of every novel is not invented. It's all drawn from Roman history. These are scrupulously researched books. And this is the story of Clodius, a Roman figure named Clodius Pulcher, who, it's a long, long story. The reason that he calls himself Clodius instead of Claudius, even though he was born a Claudian, is a long, long story. He was a thoroughly disreputable figure. Thoroughly disreputable. It did everything wrong, totally scandalous, but also unethical, mean, vicious, murderous, and he ran with a horrible crowd too. One particular young man that he ran with, named Capio, was gorgeous, but if anything, worse than Clodius. And he was rising in Roman politics. He like most of the very worst people in the world, he wanted to be in politics. He wanted to rule the Roman state, essentially. And it was a time when the large parts of the ruling Roman state, especially in Rome and the immediate Rome area, were governed by gangs, by mobs like the Casa Nostra. They were organized that way. They were heavily militarized. And Clodius came to a bad end when a group of his followers on a road outside of Rome met with the leader of another one of those gangs and a group of his followers. The best that we can figure out from the historical sources is that both Clodius and Milo, the other gang leader, kind of wanted the event to go off without. They wanted to just pass by each other. Neither one was ready. Neither one expected to find each other there. They weren't ready for a confrontation, and they weren't 100% sure that they wanted one. Because this is a shadowy world of constantly changing allegiances, where if you manage to kill your opposite number, well, you don't know what powerful enemies you might be making. Sources, I think, tend to say that they wanted to just pass by each other, but as you could guess, when you've got groups like that together who really hate each other and who are being paid to hate each other, violence erupted, Clodius was wounded, and then eventually murdered. And that is the murder on the Appian Way here. So we have Stephen Saylor drawing his main character, Gordianus the Finder, into a known historical subject, into a known historical murder. And it's extremely good. Extremely good. I don't know that it's the strongest novel for the protagonist. the long stretches where Gordianus and his assistant and his people fade out of the woodwork completely, but it doesn't matter. This, and the same thing with this, and also Catilinus' Riddle, it's the history of Rome in the period. It's the history of the other people involved, the actual historical characters, Lucullus and Pompey and Julius Caesar. It's the historical characters that start to come to the fore and command the narrative. It's my favorite of the Gordianus the Finder books. I was happy to find it in a hardcover already with one of these dust jackets. And this next one is something that I wanted because I like the form. I already have the book. It's a Penguin Classic Deluxe Edition, but I liked the form. And so I mentioned it to a guy who works at the Brattle. I've known him since he was a boy, and he has a phenomenal ability to remember customer requests. Even though he sees thousands of books a day, he has a phenomenal ability to remember them and to remember who made them. So he's not just opening a box, seeing something, saying, oh, somebody wanted that. He's remembering who wanted it. This had to be a couple of years ago that I suggested that if he ever sees this, I want the next one that his hands touch. And he did. He saw one. This is the Tale of Genji by Murasaki Shikabu. But this is the Royal Tyler translation, which is the Penguin Classic Deluxe Edition. But this is the lovely original 2-volume hardcover edition. That is a lot prettier than the... Is there something inserted? Did I just open to an insert? Oh, I did. Oh, it's just from the book. Okay. This 2-volume thing is a lot prettier than the 1-volume Penguin can be. And I love box sets anyway. And I confess that sometimes I've been reading that Penguin thing and I've kind of thought, well, wouldn't it be nice to have this? Wouldn't it be nice to have the box set? And sure enough, he found it. So he remembered. So he presented it to me when I went in today. Then we have a couple of New York. We're almost getting done here. I'm almost out of time. We have a couple of New Yorker cartoon collections. Some of you will know that I absolutely love New Yorker cartoons. I think they're fantastic. They're, at least until the present day, where the artwork is terrible and the captions are often dumb. Both together. The artwork terrible, captions dumb. A New Yorker cartoon can't survive if the captions and the artwork are both bad. But until I would say probably about the early 2000s, the magazine had an extremely high level for that sort of thing. The artwork was usually very good, and the captions were either very well done by the artist or they were taken out of the artist's hands and written by a funnier writer on the staff. And the New Yorker has many, they used to have many big collected volumes for years or for decades, but they also broke cartoons down into subjects because New Yorker cartoons revisit the same premise many times. And I have a lot of those, and I found two more today. I found the New Yorker book of doctor and psychiatrist cartoons, and the New Yorker book of business cartoons that has one of the most famous New Yorker cartoons of all, a harried guy at his desk at his office on the phone, busily pointing at a calendar, and the caption is, "Now Thursday's out. How about never? Does never work for you?" This is that. But both of these have cartoons that I'm very, very familiar with. So I'm happy to have two more to add to the collection. These go straight in the little book room. They don't go anywhere else. And then another addition to the little book room, something I know I will put in there. I just need to seriously save this thing first. I mentioned the other day that the Brattle got a huge shipment of art-related books. Gigantic. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books on every aspect of art, of painting and etching and sculpture and architecture. Just, it's the work. It would be the work of a week to look through all these books. I'm not going to do that, especially since there are only a few of them that I know I would want. And I confess, I was looking for other things. I was looking for the aforementioned New Yorker cartoon collections. I was looking for maybe a nice collection of Norman Rockwell, something like that. I have very plebeian taste when it comes to art. Maybe a nice collection of Benvenuto Cellini would be nice. But the one that I saw today, that I found today, I wasn't even thinking about it, and I'm glad I saw it because I really, really want it. This is by Michael Schau, and it is a big retrospection of J.C. Leyendecker. And we see that looks terrible. The spine is a little bit better. But the front is going to need some serious care. And it was an iconic artist almost 100 years ago, whose career was largely imitated and then subsumed by Norman Rockwell, who even went so far as to follow him to where he lived and dress like him, that sort of thing. But he did a lot of artwork for ads, and I think his work is just gorgeous, just gorgeous. And this book has everything. I mean, it has wartime posters in addition to his advertising work or his Saturday Evening Post covers. It has everything, breakdowns of everything. There was this must have been the companion to when did this come out? There's arrow collars. See if you can spot the subtext in this and many other J.C. Leyendecker advertising spreads. Can you spot the subtext? I'll give you two hints. One, it doesn't have anything to do with shirt collars. And two, follow his gaze. What is he looking at? I don't think he's looking at the paper. I don't think he's looking at that guy's shoes. J.C. Leyendecker could not have made it any clearer at the time that he was making these cartoons. But when did this come out? This book was $27.50, so this had to come out in the 1960s or 70s. Oh, I don't know if this will tell me. A lot of times these art books don't. Oh, okay, well, I don't know. This isn't actually going to tell me, I don't think. Okay, well, but anyway, this would have been the companion to a Leyendecker exhibition of some kind or another that went the rounds in the Northeast museums or whatnot. And there was a later exhibition, must have been decades after this thing, that also had a companion volume. Only it was late enough so that I was back in the reviewing game. I reviewed that later volume and wrote a long piece about Leyendecker. Again, if I can find it, I will link it down below. But if I can't find it, or if I don't have the time to brush it up, and you just want to read the bare text, and this is in all cases, just type in my name and the name of whatever you're looking to see if I wrote about into Google. That's the easiest way to find out when I did it, where I did it, if I did it. But I love this artist. I love his story, even though it gets very sad. And I don't have that later retrospective, the one that I actually wrote about. Look at that. Look at how lovely that is. Just beautiful. I don't have that later retrospective. It went away. I don't know where. I must have sent it to somebody. The one that I actually wrote about. But this seems even better to me because that earlier one had a lot of historical photographs, but I didn't have a lot of his. There were pieces of his work that were not included in that second volume, that later volume. The wartime posters, propaganda posters, that sort of thing weren't in that book as far as I remember. So this is the one that I want. It's just in rough shape. I will save this dust jacket somehow. I managed to do it somehow. So that was a great find. Very happy to find this. Again, just read the subtext. That's all you have to do. He didn't make it hard to do. So there you go. That was a very naughty trip to the Brattle. I should not have gone. But we have J.C. Leyendecker. How fantastic. I will save this. I will fix it up. And then it goes in the little book room. Then two more additions to the little book room. Two more New Yorker cartoon collections. We have the autobiography of Benvenuto Cellini in the Book of the Month Club edition with Salvador Dali artwork, probably also in the little book room. Murder on the Appian Way, my favorite Gordianus book, probably also in the little book room. We have the 2-volume Royal Tyler Tale of Genji, which won't go in the little book room unless it's on the floor. Box sets are very convenient in that way. And then we have a bunch of mass market paperbacks. Dr. Thorne, Oxford Exit by Veronica Stallwood. What else have we got here? Death and the Pregnant Virgin, a Norwich, England mystery. The Persian Boy, one day after I said that I didn't have a copy. Oh, God. The Many-Colored Land by Julian May, first in the Pliesian Exile tetralogy. And then last but not least, not pictured here, so to speak, is the Steinbeck King Arthur book. I don't know what happened to it. It slid off the couch or went somewhere, but that was a duplicate that I'll reinforce it, but that'll be the one that I read when I reread it, which I'm getting up again to reread a lot of Arthurian stuff, probably later this year, but not today. Today is for writing. So I'm going to wrap this up, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.